Forever Monday by Mike Grimes. Chapter 19. Copyright 2010. Chapter 19. The weather was warm, getting up around 80 degrees, pleasant and clear with just a few fluffy clouds in the blue sky. Allison jogged to the pond where she guzzled down some water from the fountain there. She saw a man with a dog, and he waved to her. She waved back. Allison had a distinct feeling of déjà vu. The man seemed familiar somehow, though she did not know why, or from where. Her ponytail glowed like copper as she walked over to where he was. Behind her, ducks and geese splashed about the pond. One of them took flight. "Hello," the man said as Allison approached him. He smiled and seemed friendly. He was handsome. "Hi," she said. His sweaty hair, though still styled, stuck to his skin in a little bit. His black and white dog barked in a playful manner and sat down at Allison's feet. "This may sound kind of crazy," Allison said, "but have we met before?" "It's possible," he replied. Allison liked how his eyes shined in the light reflected from the water nearby. The dog barked and yipped again, and he petted its large head. The canine was studying her with gentle, remarkable blue-white eyes. She raised her sunglasses and stuck them on top of her head. "Maya here thinks so," the man explained. Maya barked and let her tongue loll out of her mouth as she panted. We're here every day. Maybe you've seen me." "Huh," Allison said, feeling doubtful. "Maybe." "I'm Michael," he said. He offered his hand and she shook it. "Allison." He had a strong grip. She enjoyed the way his hand conformed to her own. It felt natural. Sparks and tingles electrified her body. "Well," she finally blurted out, "I have this routine." "I understand," he said. "It was nice meeting both of you." "See you tomorrow," Michael called after her as she jogged away. She turned, trotting backwards. "Maybe. Who knows?" With a quick smile, she was gone. Michael bit his tongue. He wanted so badly to tell her about the night before, and all the nights before that, what they'd shared, but he didn't. Maya barked and whined, and acted as though a dear friend of hers was disappearing from her life. "Yeah," Michael mumbled. "I know the feeling." Chapter 20. "Maya says hello," Michael said to Allison through the phone during their afternoon conversation. "Aw, she's sweet, like her daddy." Allison leaned against the window frame, gazing longingly out from the bedroom. "Nah, she's spoiled. Rotten to the core." Allison laughed. "She's a husky. Part wolf?" "You noticed that, huh? Wow, not many people pick up on that little fact. I find it best not to brag about the wolf part, but yeah, she is. My dog walker brought her by earlier during my lunch break." Maya got all excited and said, "Where's the pretty lady? Where's the pretty lady? I want to say hello." They both laughed at this attempt at helping Allison cheer up. Her spirits were, honestly, a little bit higher, thanks to him. "Lunch break. See, I figured you were working over there. You couldn't possibly end up living right across from my window. I would never be that lucky." She bobbed her dangling foot up and down. "You are lucky, Alley Cat. We both are." He stuck an earpiece to his head and it glowed bright blue. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." Allison gazed at him through the open air. Do you think it's possible to fall in love really fast?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, is it possible to become so infatuated and wonderfully intimate that you cannot help but fall in love right away?" "I do." "Do you feel it right now, I mean, or am I alone?" "No, you're not alone. I feel it." Michael paused, studying her body and choice of attire. "I really am liking those bell-bottoms and that t-shirt. You look great in black." "Thank you," she said. "And the jeans bring out the beautiful roundness of your hips." Allison petted her stomach briefly, slowly. She made no attempt to cover up as flesh was exposed to him. "Thank you. I'm fond of them myself. And you. Well, you're not so bad on the eyes either." "Thank you," he said. "I try to stay in shape. If you don't mind me saying so, your body is exquisitely distracting." "Is it now?" "Yes, I can hardly concentrate over here." They laughed. "In what way is it distracting you?" she asked wistfully. "In that way." "Wow, where have you been all my life?" "At the park." "Ha ha, very funny," Allison said. She stared at Michael for a few minutes, lost in her admiration. She ran a hand up under her shirt, upward to her breasts, then down again to her bare belly. Do you have any idea what you'd do to me, Michael? I have a feeling. A big feeling? She asked, giggling. Never had any complaints so far. She saw him fidget, adjust himself, and she smiled. She pulled at the button and fly of her jeans until they came undone. Her fingers moved inside. Michael watched, and she allowed him to. She was looking straight at his eyes when she said, "The way you talk to me, the things you say to comfort me." He saw the bulge of her hand inside her jeans, moving and writhing about, slowly, deliberately. It made him hard. "It's like I'm a priceless work of art," Allison explained, "and your voice is the only one I can hear. You drive me over the edge, Michael." She could tell by his movements that she was having a deeply physical effect on him. She could see it. His hand cupped himself. She watched him, but her eyes began to moisten. "Can I tell you something?" she said softly. "Yes, anything you want. I dreamed about you. I dreamed about you with me, and when I woke up..." "Go on," he prodded. "I want to hear." Allison wrapped an arm around her waist, under her breasts, and cocked her hip so she was standing in an extreme contrapposto. "Well, I woke up thinking of you, and I touched myself. I wet myself with you still fresh in my mind." She paused, purposely, letting the image sink into his mind, then added, "I enjoyed it very much. Then I saw you at the park with Maya, and there was this deja vu thing. Only... Only? Only I knew for a fact that I'd never met you before today. But I saw you at the park, and in my dream and fantasies, I..." She covered her eyes, crying. He heard her sniffle wetly, sadly, dishearteningly. Her voice quavered. "I told Dr. Stone I didn't know who the man in my dream was. But I do know. I know he's you. But he can't be. I just met you. God, you must think I'm totally insane." Michael couldn't take much more. He was crying himself, hating himself for not bringing up the topic sooner. "Allison," he said gently, but sternly enough to get her attention. She sniffled and wiped her face. "Yes? I need to tell you something. I think it will probably help all this make sense to you." "I'm listening." "You and I, we know each other." She finally lifted her face and looked out the window with wet, mascara-streaked eyes. "What?" "We know each other, Allison." "We do? I mean, I'm not crazy?" "No. The thing is," he said. He hesitated, but not long. "This morning after your shower, when you flirted with me from your window there." Allison was still as a statue. Her eyes were wide, hanging on his next word, wondering what it would possibly be. "We go through that banter every day." I don't understand." "Each and every day you flirt with me and play coy, and later on you come home for your appointment crying your eyes out. You beg me to call you, and we chat until you've calmed down. Then I go to bed at night, alone." He sighed. "Absolutely and miserably alone. I know the truth about your memory loss. I have for a while now. I just never say anything because I feel you have to come to grips with it on your own. But I just can't anymore. But I had to tell you because I can't stand to see you this way. Again. I can't stand to know this secret and keep it from you. I had to tell you because I'm in love with you." He crumpled to his sofa, covering his eyes. Even with her spyglass, Allison could tell he was crying. She could hear him sobbing quietly through the phone. "You knew, and you didn't tell me?" "No." "I'm so sorry. Are you mad?" "No, not at all." She waited, then asked, "So how long have we been going through this routine of ours?" Honestly, I want to know. I need to know, God damn it. "How long?" 11.5 months. "Oh, God," Allison said. Allison felt as though an icy chill had just ripped her body in two. She could barely remain standing. She sat down in her chair by the window. "And you," she said, "you've been patient all this time, waiting for me, being my friend until I could remember you, ignoring your own feelings." "Between cold showers," he said, sniffing. "Yes, I have been waiting and waiting. and fucking waiting for you to wake up and see me at the park and say, "Hi, I know you," or remember my number the next day and call me and reminisce about all the things we talked about today. It's killing me, Allison. I had to tell you, I love you so much that you need to come over here right now. I need to feel you, Michael, please. He collected himself. He said, "Which? 10A. I'm on my way." After turning her phone off, Allison held it to her heart and she peered out the window, waiting. Across the street, she saw Michael go to his office door, turn off the light, and leave. She stood there waiting on pins and needles, anxious butterflies tearing her insides apart. Finally, he burst out from the building across the street, onto the sidewalk. He jogged hastily into the street, dodging cars and taxis. Allison gasped worriedly, but soon he was safe on her side of the street. A moment later, she was at her door, thumb ready to press the button to open the front door of the building. It felt like days before her buzzer sounded. When it did, her thumb shot forward instantly. Allison bolted for the bathroom, buttoned her jeans, checked her face and hair. Her makeup was a little smeared from crying. She wiped her eyes and looked again. She was a wreck. Fuck it. Michael knocked, and before he was done, Allison's door flew open. He was there in the doorway, in the flesh. He came in and shut the door, leaning on it. "Hi," she finally said breathlessly. Her heart was beating out of her chest. Her breast heaved lustfully. Michael closed his mouth, breathed through his nose. His strong shoulders swelled and moved as he caught his breath. "Hello," he said, taking her in. Allison was prettier and sexier up close, in person. This woman before him was not the athletic, playful, yet cautious girl from the park. This woman was plump and round and truly wanton, animalistic desire for him in her eyes. Allison could not take her eyes off her guest. She bit her bottom lip. Michael suddenly caught her lips on his own and threw his weight against her. She kissed him and held her. She kissed him as he held her and groped her belly and chest, pinning her to the door like an insect. She pulled her legs upward and leaped up onto him, locking her ankles around his waist, tangling her freckled arms around his broad shoulders. Her weight was not an issue for him, it seemed. He was able to hold her aloft with little or no effort at all. God, he's so strong, she thought. Allison closed her eyes as smoldering heat and electricity flooded her body. She thrust herself against him and let him know she wanted him. She felt his mouth on her cheek, neck, jaw, throat, chin. He fondled her soft belly, her full, heavy breasts. He caressed her thigh as a sculptor molding clay would, and she shivered with ecstasy. He lowered his body to toss her legs over his shoulders, pausing long enough to caress the soft soles of her feet with his lips and tongue, making her quiver with ecstasy. When the heat of his breath whispered across her zipper, she absolutely melted. Soon they were on her sofa, Allison lying on her back against Michael's chest as they kissed. She allowed his urgent hands to roam freely, caressing her warm, soft, pale body as she ground against his front. She was amazed at the sensations his sex gave her. "Oh my God," she muttered in passion-laced whispers. His nimble fingers finally undid the button of her jeans, pulled down the zipper, and reached inside. She moved to allow them to touch her soft, hairless lips and beyond, grinding and undulating until they were inside her. She thought of her dream, her fantasy about Michael. A few short hours ago, he had been simply a stranger at the park, and now she was a willing victim of his wild, pent-up desires. She could feel it pressing against her bottom, its heat and firmness sending raw fire to her loins. There was nowhere she would rather be. Michael pulled his hands free, just long enough to take hold of the waistband of Allison's jeans, and slid them down off her round hips and thighs. Soon she was naked from the waist down, and the way her ivory flesh contrasted his own drove him mad. He watched as she quickly shed her top, revealing a beautiful braless chest with nipples so pale they nearly blended in with her surrounding flesh. He liked what he saw and felt indeed. His hands dipped into the crevice between her thighs and rubbed her there. Then one of his hands moved to her breast, squeezing and massaging them. He had been patient, waiting nearly an eternity to touch her, be inside her, make her wet with desire for him. And he would not wait a moment longer. Michael freed himself, forcing her knees apart with his own. He hugged Allison's delicious body against his own as he gently but passionately entered her. Chapter 21. After making love a few more times and then taking a bath together, Allison was in front of her full-length mirror, brushing her long hair. She smiled as Michael came up behind her and reached up to remove the green towel from her body, dropping it to the floor at her feet. "I like you better naked," he declared shamelessly as he kissed her neck and nipped at her ear like a tiger. She felt his lips move down to her shoulder, his hands up and down her shape. "Do you have any idea how sexy you are, Alley Cat?" She felt his familiar firmness on her rear end. "In your arms, I do." She turned and kissed him, using her hand to grope and tease him into readiness. He finally grabbed her, lifted her from the floor, and tossed her onto the bed like a rag doll. She squealed in surprise, but he quickly quieted her with a smoldering kiss. Chapter 22. Later on, Allison and Michael relaxed on her sofa in the living room, eating pizza in their underwear. She had her head on his shoulder, legs curled underneath herself. They were watching her cat munch on a stray slice of pizza in the box. "You hungry, boy?" Allison asked sweetly. He chomped down on a piece of sauce-coated piece of mozzarella. Michael petted her soft thigh. "Have you thought of a name for him yet?" I've been a little distracted." She caressed Michael's bare, hairless chest, feeling muscles flex and loosen as he moved and breathed. Michael wiped his hands on a napkin, then reached to retrieve her Audrey Hepburn biography from the coffee table. "Is he fixed?" he said. "I don't think so. Or I think so. Why?" Michael thumbed through the book, skipping to the index in the back. "I have an idea. You'll love it, I swear." He turned the page, scanned it, then flipped to a certain page. "Here we go." He pointed to a paragraph near the top of the page. Allison's eyes scanned the words. "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," Michael said. She glanced at the page again. "Because tomorrow never comes." He smiled, and so did she. "Hey, it fits," he said, "in more ways than one." "I do love it," she admitted gleefully. "Audrey would be so proud." "Tomorrow," she cooed toward the cat. His eyes immediately perked up, and he looked at her. She crossed the gap between the table and sofa and nuzzled her chin. "Tomorrow it is, then." Michael looked at his watch. "Do you have to go?" Allison asked. "I might. There's no telling what Maya has done to the house in my absence. I have to take my pill anyway." "Pill?" "Yeah, I take a pill. Dr. Stone gives it to me. To help with my memory." "Has it helped?" "You know I really couldn't tell you." "You're just one joke after another, aren't you?" "I go with what works." She leaned in close and kissed his lips. "Like making love to a wonderful, handsome man." Their lips caressed one another for a spell, then parted before they got carried away again. "I really would like to take one of your pills with me," he said, "if you don't mind. I have a brother who worked in pharmaceuticals, and I still have some connections in the field. I'd be interested in what you're taking." "Had a brother? I'm sorry, I didn't." "It's okay, it wasn't your fault." "Are you okay?" "Yes, thank you. It gets better each day, but it's still very difficult. We were very close, Tom and I," he said. Michael smiled. "I really should get going. It would be a little awkward if you woke up tomorrow and found some strange man in your bed, all things considered." "Yeah," she felt a disappointment expression wipe across her face. Michael lifted her chin with his fingertips. "Hey, it will be okay, Alley Cat, I promise." While Michael got dressed, Allison retrieved the small pill bottles and gave them to him. "Here you go. I don't know if they work or not, so just go ahead and take both of them." He studied the bottles curiously, then slipped them into his pocket. Allison hugged him. It felt, at least to her, that it was the last time she would ever hold him. "I love you, Allison," he said, sensing her despair. "Me too. I'm going to miss you." She looked at him. "Don't count us out yet, kiddo," he said gently. "Remember Moon River." She nodded, smiling. At the door he turned. "See you at the park tomorrow, say 10 a.m. Write it down." "Good idea. Good night, sweetheart." "Good night." As Allison closed her apartment door, Tamara rubbed her leg. She hoisted him up. into her arms and rubbed her chin, and he rubbed her chin, claiming her as his own. She suddenly had an idea. She rushed to the dining room table, sat her cat down, and grabbed her journal. She wrote down all the events of the day and how she'd met a man named Michael. She wrote how they had communicated via handwritten signs they had made, and they talked on the phone. She even wrote that he had come over for dinner and how they had made wonderful, unprotected love. "I'm so in love," she wrote, "and he might be too," with a smiley face. She paused, then wrote in bold print, "Do not take any pills Dr. Stone gives you. Wait for Michael. He's gonna find out what they are." Tomorrow purred and rubbed his owner's hand. She was busy scribbling more words. "The cat's name is Tomorrow. M will explain if you forget. Meet M at park, 10 a.m. Allison tore the page from the book and left it on the counter by the note to see Dr. Stone, then headed for bed. With high hopes for the next day, she drifted off to sleep.